Today in America, we celebrate the American labor movement with a day off to rest and reflect. And here to give us a history of the works and contributions of African American laborers to the development of the United States is Dr. Gregg Carr, chair of the Howard University Department of Afro-American Studies. He joins us now from Washington, D.C. Dr. Carr, good of you to join us today, and happy Labor Day to you.
Happy Labor Day to you, brother, as you, like black folk, always do somehow, working on Labor Day. Thanks for having me, brother.
Thanks, my friend. Good to see you as well. Look, the African American labor struggle post-slavery, it's a major part of the foundation of the building of this country. And I would dare say even going back prior to that, even during our slavery days, we were still contributing to the greatness of this nation by building so many industries, albeit free. This may be a rhetorical question, but why do you think we know so little about African American industry and the contributions that we have made through industry and through labor that have benefited all Americans?
Well, Kelly, I think like you said, you've kind of answered it in laying out our journey since we were abducted and brought to these shores. I think we know so little because it isn't helpful to the kind of myth of American exceptionalism to fold the contributions of black labor accurately into that story. I mean, it's very simple. Black folk were brought to this continent, to this hemisphere, to work. In fact, labor is the only reason we're having this conversation in English. Otherwise, our people would still be in African. And so the story of labor in the Western Hemisphere, really in the modern world system, is the story of appropriated black labor. You can't tell that story honestly without upsetting many of the myths we have in this country. The Civil War, for example, I'll just give you a very quick example. The Civil War, Dr. Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois writes this in Black Reconstruction in America. In many ways, the North is able to win that war, not only because black people were armed and 200,000 plus fought in the Union Army, but before that, black labor in the form of enslaved Africans on those death camps and plantations stopped working. That collapsed, in part, the Confederate economy. So if you really think about it, the story of black labor is not only the story of America, it's the story of the modern world system.
Very good point. And you know, black Americans formed the Colored National Labor Union in 1869 to fight for the rights of black Americans. However, the union spoke of the need for Americans of all nationalities to come together to ensure workers' rights and safety. Why was it important for them to include all Americans in their fight for rights?
Well, the simple fact of the matter is, Kelly, that class plays a central role in forming human societies. And what black people always understood was that we shared with those who found themselves after the Civil War at a disadvantage in terms of social class. We shared that class conditions in many ways. Even as black people, we were different. There were many things we had in common. And really, the story of the American labor movement in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, up until you see Labor Day adopted as a national holiday, in part by the federal government because of organized labor and strikes, that is a story of solidarity at moments and playing on racism to keep those laboring classes divided. The 1860s is really a story of railroad labor. You know, the Pullman strike, which we could talk about later, because I know we're going to talk about a little bit about the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. That strike in 1894 scares the hell out of the federal government because they really
Yeah, it did.
paralyzed the transportation network. Yeah. And so that's what leads to Labor Day. But black folk always understood it would be better for labor to come together than to be apart.
Right, because we're all in this thing together, so to
We
speak.
are
But
all
look,
in together.
you already alluded to it. A. Philip Randolph's Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters and Maids was the first black union to be recognized by a national body in 1925. However, Maids was dropped from the name after 1937. Why did that happen?
Well, there we go. There's the trifecta, isn't it? Race, class, and sex, gender, that intersectionality. Here we have it. There was a very strong ladies' auxiliary to the Brotherhood Sleeping Car Porter and Maids. Black women were heavily involved, but black maids on those Pullman cars received worse pay, longer hours, some of the most grueling work on those cars. And even though the Brotherhood was started in 1925, it took until 1937, with the help of the federal government and organized labor, AFL-CIO, to negotiate a contract. One of the things that they dropped as they negotiated the contract was maids from the title of the organization. Mary McLeod
Mm.
Bethune, Mary Church Terrell, and others. By the time you get to the 1940s, when A. Philip Randolph threatens Franklin Roosevelt with a march on Washington, and then drops the threat when they integrate jobs in the war industry, which is, by the way, one of the reasons we have that second wave of the Great Migration. Oh my God, Ms. Bethune, Ms. Terrell, Nanny Helen Burroughs, so many black women who are organized. They excoriate A. Philip Randolph and say, hold on, this war isn't over. And in tandem with women such as Anna Arnold Hedgeman, who helped organize what became the March on Washington movement, those black women form the spine of a great deal of that organizing work that leads eventually to everything from the March on Washington to the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65. It's an internal
Yeah.
gender challenge that we have yet to meet.
Yeah, here we are today, still
Yep,
trying to meet
here
that
we are today.
challenge. Dr. Gregg Carr, I could talk to you for a lot longer, my friend. I hope to catch up with you soon once we get through this
Indeed.
COVID. Dr. Gregg
Happy Labor
Carr,
Day, brother.
chair of the Howard University. Are you too? He's the chair of the Department of Afro-American Studies at the Howard University. Make sure you check him out. Thanks for joining us again. Happy Labor Day to you.